Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first Reddit F1 League run that we're taking part in. This first kind of run into online categories. So, unfortunately, over the course of the qualifying and the race, I had technical issues with the live commentary being captured. So, I'm going to have to come back and do a kind of post commentary like I'm doing just now. So, these aren't unfortunately going to be the live reactions that has already taken place. I've kind of lost that live stuff, so hopefully I can get that sorted out for next week's race. But it's about time for us to jump over to our qualifying session. Now, I did keep all the footage for this qualifying session. You can see we're all loading in, and earlier before we were able to make a selection of our tires. So we're going with the a softer setup, so we have a bunch of soft tires to run on. I'm not really going to try and make it through on medium tires. So making sure we're getting our setup loaded, not going to make the mistake I made during the evaluation race. That was at COTA. I had a good setup and everything. Forgot to load the setup after a bunch of host migrations. So that one definitely impacted us pretty negatively while running that race. But we're going to try and get out on the track pretty early on, be one of the first cars out, try and get some clean air to run. Another thing that happened during the session was there was a humongous lag spike in our first qualifying session. And my teammate actually set a qualifying lap time, the pole position lap time, that was basically about a second and a half faster than what the esports qualifying times were. So something went totally goofy for him there. And as a result, everybody decided to kind of re-instance into a new session since we were early on to start it there. So we're popping out on our first out lap. We've carrying about 6 laps worth of fuel. A little more than I wanted to coming out because we really aren't going to be running back-to-back laps. Be good to carry that amount if we're doing 2 laps like in a row as our fast laps, but we're going to go ahead and I just hadn't changed it yet. So we are turning down the electrical deployment to keep that battery nice and charged, but we are keeping the engine turned all the way up to that max value to try and burn off as much extra weight as we can. But here we are in our official league car here, the number 13 Haas car. So we're taking on being a part of the American Haas F1 team who lost their title sponsor over the course of the year because it was Rich Energy and they're weird. And it wasn't necessarily a whole drama going on with that. So it was fun. But we're getting ourselves set up for our first real flying lap here. So we'll get everything cranked up. There's only one car ahead of us on track, a Williams up there. So let's get the pedal down. It looks like some yellow flags behind us. Hopefully nothing happens in front of us. So we're a little wide on the exit to start our first flying lap here. So not ideal, but we're just kind of getting a banker in right now. And it looks like somebody came out and is on their out lap in front of us as well. A red dot on the map there. But decently tidy through turns 1 and 2. A little bit of rear locking on there, but now we got yellow flags ahead. Looks like the Williams is pulled off the side. All right, he's off the track completely, so he's not going to affect our run too much. He's staying out of the way, but we definitely had to kind of tiptoe until we could see what was going on there. But now shooting through, really hard to find the braking and turn-in points with all the shadows from all the trees in that corner there. Definitely a tough one to figure out. But then we are kind of hitting the back half of the track here. One more kind of quick chicane there, and now we're running down this long kind of left-hander into the turns 11 and 12 chicane. Now, through 11 and 12, you have to be very careful not to cut the corners. It'll invalidate your lap time. So we kind of were tentative through that section there just to make sure that we put in a good banker. That's also another thing that happened during that session that got tossed was we actually invalidated our first lap time. Then our second lap time, somebody came out of the pits right in front of us as we were on our flying lap into turn 1 and caused some big problems for us. But here we are getting on the throttle out of the last corner. Much better run. Catch a little bit of curbing on the exit. Open that DRS and shoot our way across the line. Not super fast. A 23.7. Obviously, we're going to be fastest lap for just a moment since we are the only car to finish a flying lap so far. But now, yeah, you see K3 going 22.7. So a good about second and a half faster than us at that point. But now we're turning everything down, trying not to burn too much of the tires here, because unlike the career mode where we have the 3 sections of qualifying, for this league we are running just one short qualifying. It's an 18-minute session. and your best time is your time. There's no knockout rounds, but you still follow the same rule where you have to start on the tires that you qualify on if you are inside of the top 10. So we want to make sure we're not burning up too much tire wear on our in-lap, because we want to make sure we have plenty of health left on that. So as we are getting towards the tail end of our in-lap here, we've dropped down to about P6 at the moment. And it looks like we got a Red Bull approaching pretty quick. And we should be able to get through these last corners quick enough to stay out of his way. We won't be in the path on a flying lap. And there we go, getting to the pit lane. Now we just got to kind of try and practice our landing area. So I think just before that little drop sign there, yeah, gets us slowed down to that very slow 37 miles an hour into the pit lane. So not a bad first qualifying lap. I mean, definitely went better than the other session we had, but definitely have some time on the board there. Turn 5, turn 11, and 12 are areas we could carry a little bit more speed in. So we'll get ourselves pushed back into the garage here, get a new set of tires on. It looks like both the Alphas are coming in from their flying laps as well. And those were the guys who were the quickest during the practice sessions yesterday. So we'll go ahead and see what they can do over the course of this race as well. So see, we definitely want to keep an eye out on where everybody is around the track. And it looks like pretty much everybody's gotten a time in except for DEF at the bottom there. So P8 at the moment, not great at 23.7. I think we could go into the... I think we could get into the mid-22s if we really hustled the car properly and turned in a good lap. No real tweaks are going to be made. Obviously, Parc Fermé rules, which means once you've done a qualifying lap, your car settings are pretty much locked in, your car setup. The only things you're allowed to change are your on-throttle differential settings, which is one thing you can control on the fly during the race using the steering wheel. Your brake balance, obviously, which you can change throughout the race. And then also your front wing angle. Everything else, all your suspension geometry and all that other stuff stays the same once you've locked that in and run your first qualifying lap. So coming down about 11 minutes left in the session at the moment. Looks like Fast 6 is on another flying lap. I'm just kind of taking a peek. But we'll get a new set of tires on, and I can hear some other cars kind of spinning up their engines. Looks like a few guys are going out on the mediums. NG Racer, Onslaught are out on mediums right now.
The track is pretty quiet at the moment. Perhaps we should get out there and get a few laps in.
You know, I think I will, Jeff. Yeah, there's only 2 people out on track right now. What we are going to do, we are going to take some of that fuel out. We'll put in just over 3 laps left. So that we can get that. So it looks like a few of the Alphas are getting out for their runs. We've got plenty of daylight. Looks like that Mercedes is coming through the second to last corner there. Usually once the next car is hitting that second to last corner, if you get yourself fired up and coming out of the pit lanes, it gives them enough time if they're on a flying lap to go fully past. As you can see actually on the mini-map, he just went flying past there and come out into pretty clean air. So turning up the engine, we've got the McLaren right behind us, so we're going to run a decently hustled out lap. So we're not holding him up at all, but we don't want to be too aggressive with it. Definitely don't want to burn up too much battery there. So P9 at the moment on the qualifying list. Only 10 minutes left to go in this session though. So we should be able to probably get another run out, and man, we really made a mess of that. So we're going to go ahead and slow up, let this McLaren out in front of us, and then get on the power so we can get on track in front of this Williams and Mercedes coming behind. For some reason just didn't quite get clicked all the way down to second for that corner. It, for some reason, didn't quite squeeze the paddle far enough, and we got stuck kind of in third gear. But this McLaren's pretty slow on the out lap. I thought he was kind of hustling behind us originally, but it looks like he's trying to just kind of slow his way up. I don't know if he's trying to let us by or anything, but now we got to kind of step it up because we've got cars on a flying lap coming behind us. So I'm gonna run it a little ways through this chicane to try and get cleared with this Williams bearing down us. Get over to the right side of the track quickly as possible out of that chicane and let him by. And same with that Mercedes. We're just going to kind of tiptoe our way towards the braking zone. So Onslaught's got plenty of space to get into the braking zone there. And he's run out and got his way past the McLaren. McLaren comes to a complete stop here. So we're just going to go ahead and go by him. I guess he wants to let us back in front, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then get everything turned up and go for another flying lap. We'll see if we can get a better run out of this last corner this time. Yeah, much better run than we did on our first flying lap. So once we hit this start-finish line, we should see that delta start to drop a bit. But let's see if we can be a little bit more tidy through turns 1 and 2. A little bit quicker, or reducing the delta. Only about a half a tenth down at the moment. Find that 100-meter board just a hair late of it. So you see we ran a little bit too deep into turns 3. So kick off to the left at turn 4. And now we're going to keep our foot in, stay brave through turn 5, which we had a little bit of a blend out on our first lap, and then so that's going to gain us a little bit of time. You see we're just shy of a tenth of a second up, but we are kind of pushing the car a little bit harder. We were a little early on the brake zone there. I think we could wait to probably close to about the 75-meter mark as opposed to 80 or 85 meters, which is kind of what we did there. So hug the inside, get a good run through the chicane this time. A little bit over on the inside on the left-hander. We didn't quite get tight enough to the left side, but a good run through the rest of the chicane. Almost about 4 tenths up as we pitch into the second to last corner. Good run on to, not second to last corner, about third from last. So get ready for this left-hander, this slow hairpin, the slowest corner. See if we can get good traction out. We lost a little time in braking, but a little better on the exit there. So we're going to improve by roughly about a half a second as we cross that start-finish line. That's going to move us up to 10th there right now. But Boomtech is at a 121 is his best lap. So we're still about 2 seconds off of that time, and I think we could probably try and go a little bit quicker. But we got yellow flags up ahead of us. It looks like that Williams is off once again, but he's got back on the track. He's moving again, according to the dots on the mini-map. And so we're just trying to keep reasonable pace on the in-lap. I mean, you see our delta's already down about almost 2 full seconds. But we don't, like I said, we don't want to burn up the tires too much on the way in. And these guys in front of us, I think, are on an in-lap already. So we're not going to have to worry about them trying to run too quick. We got plenty of daylight behind us, a lot of space on track. So we can definitely just kind of nurse the car home, run it in the low fuel mix, low electrical deployment, and just kind of keep the tires treated nice and gently. Don't put too much slip angle into them, not too much steering lock or too much brake or temperature. So here we go. Time to get ourselves into the pit lane again. And one thing I try to do entering the pit lane, try and basically do practice for the entry as much as possible, because that's definitely an area where you can gain or lose some time in the race, is it during that pit stop phase. So being able to come in and get a fresh set of tires and get to that pit line limiter right at the speed is definitely a good strat to worry about. But let's have our guys push us back into the garage. We'll take a check at the timing sheets and see where we're sitting after our second run. We should have enough time to do one more run out around the track here pretty shortly. We'll see what the timer is. It's red, so it's got to be under 5 minutes. 4:50. So one thing I'm starting to look at here for this final run is I want to try and push it to as late as possible, because obviously the more people that are out on the track, the more rubber gets laid down, the more grip there is. So the later in the session you go, the more grip you tend to get as the track kind of evolves.
So far, our fastest lap is a 1 minute 23.2.
So with a 23.2 as our fastest lap, that means that our normal our out lap we'll probably be able to do in around a minute 28, a minute 30 or so. So we want to leave time for that, and then we also want to leave time for the car getting fired up, which takes about 10 to 15 seconds, and then also getting it out of the pit lane. So we're looking to probably get out for our out lap, because we just have to have already started our final flying lap before the checkered flag waves. So we just have to try and cross that start-finish line with only a couple of seconds left to go on there. But another thing we have to worry about is also making sure that we're not getting caught up in any traffic, because I'm sure there's a few other cars that are going to be trying to do a late run just like we are. So we're looking to probably around the 2:30, 2:40 time remaining, 2 minutes 40 time remaining, to get our car fired up and out, because I want to at least be ahead of the pack that's coming out. It looks like some of the guys that are on the in-lap might have enough time to come in, get tires switched on quickly, but it looks like Toro Rosso's on a flying lap. It looks like this Mercedes is coming in. And it looks like there's also a Ferrari on a flying lap right now. Nemesis on the medium tire on a 22.5 is a pretty good time. It's a very good time, especially for the harder compound of tire, for sure. So we've slipped to 11th, so we're just outside of that top 10 right now of the 15 runners in the session. But one thing I was kind of thinking of as I was sitting here and trying to run these qualifying laps and get my mentality straight was, really the goal I wanted to set for myself for this race was just to try to stay out of trouble and get around. I was coming in thinking we'll probably see 3 or 4 retirements over the course of this race, and if you're running, you're probably going to be in the points at least, with there being only 15 people in the session. So that was kind of the thing I was looking for, and we're running a lot lighter, even lighter fuel. We've only got 2.8 laps in there, so we got about 2 minutes left to get on around our outlap. We've got a little bit of breathing space with the McLaren behind us. You can see a couple other cars coming out of that pit lane, but we want to get this last flying lap pretty much done and dusted. Let's see if we can improve and get ourselves any higher up the grid. So it looks like Nemesis is done with his session. He's not going out for another lap. And we are just kind of running our way around to get back to the start-finish line. And a little overcooked into that corner there. Definitely something we don't want to do on that final flying lap. But it's one thing that I'm kind of learning. The evaluation race, I didn't get much of it because I had a spin early on that put me towards the back of the grid and was basically kind of running mostly by myself for most of the race. But understanding how I've got a good idea of playing the career, how the AI is going to behave in traffic, how they're going to move and maneuver around other cars. But it's definitely something to think about when you're maneuvering around other human players. There's kind of an air of unpredictability, and we'll have to see, how much people are willing to leave space, and how good they are at checking up and not really rushing headlong into danger. But here we are, starting our final flying lap there. We got a good run down the start-finish straight. A little overcooked into turn 1, so we lost a bit of time there. We're already down we'll be down almost about a tenth by the time we hit this braking zone here. And just a little deep again, just not quite finding the braking zone for turn 3 there in this session, but we're down about a tenth, so it's not too far. It's not unsalvageable yet. But there we run just to catch a little too much curb, and with the strict corner cutting, that's going to invalidate this lap. We're not going to have enough time, obviously, to get around and start another flying lap, so that is our qualifying completely done. No more laps are going to be put in, so we'll just pull into the pit lane after as we get to the end. I am running this last section fairly high pace, pushing the car pretty hard because I want to get at least a feel for it. Just kind of practice really attacking some of these corners. We got yellow flags ahead in the final sector there. So we'll see if that gets cleared up. It looks like a Mercedes has gone around. But one thing that was going on today in my warm-up sessions before the qualifying in the race, my theme was apparently spins. I was having just getting a little out of sorts on some of those chicanes. The turn 5, the turn 11 and 12 chicane just wasn't quite nailing it. And they're pushing our teammate in, who apparently has finished their flying lap. So we'll let them get him all hooked up, and then they'll get us up on the jacks and push us into the garage. But so I was feeling a little off coming in. I mean, the setup felt fine. I just wasn't quite nailing the braking points coming in, but I think I can have good race pace. At least the practice session indicated that, like long stints I was able to stay fairly consistent. I saw a lot of even the faster runners spinning during those practice sessions yesterday. So we'll definitely have to see what we can do in the course of this race and see if we can, first off, achieve our goal of not DNFing, and then also seeing if we can get our way into the points. But as we get the tire blankets thrown back on, they'll take us out, and we'll just kind of watch us pick up some XP for running in the session. It's one thing we will definitely be gaining throughout. So looks like Fast 6 has got a penalty, and so does DEF Resol there. So 2 cars taking a 5-place grid penalty. Fast 6 is going to get dropped behind us on the grid, and so he's got a faster overall pace, but he's going to be behind us. So that's one guy we're going to have to kind of watch out for early on, is to see if he's going to try and charge to him. We're just trying to take a peek, see what some of the guys' times are running. A lot of 22s from these other guys. Pretty much everybody on the softs, only a couple hards and mediums there. 23s as we get down here. And then, yeah, our teammate at the back of the grid right now. Unfortunately, that lag spike did not come around the second time around. So now we are getting ourselves ready to get loaded out onto the grid here for the race. And getting our strategy selected. And we're going to be starting on the soft tire for certain. We'll start on the softs, and we'll see what kind of lap times we can come in here.
Show them what you can do.
So taking a look at the strategy, we can make a one-stopper happen. Soft onto medium. We are going to try and go lap 10 on the pit window. It allegedly increases our lap time, our race time a little bit, but we're going to try and go for an undercut. And for some reason, the game likes to overfuel the car. So you see it's only a 29-lap race. We're going to crank the onboard fuel load down a little bit. We'll have to run in lean just for a little while, but we've got our strategy selected, and so now we'll get out on the track for the formation lap before the actual start of the race. It's a lap that we can run, kind of get a feel for the car, get the tire brakes up to temperatures, and see how that does. And we'll obviously see what people do getting off the grid. We're just kind of waiting for the cars in front of us to move before we get going, and they check up in front of us all of a sudden, and there goes Fast 6, who's just launching his way to the start. So with his 5-place grid penalty, we will be starting P10, so just inside the points, but for some reason he's kind of, instead of holding position and maintaining his position on the track, he's jumped ahead of us, although I think a lot of people kind of got out of sorts at the start here. So we've turned the fuel mix down. No reason running full fuel burn during this formation lap, but just kind of getting an eye on the track here and seeing what other people are doing, giving a little bit of a weave to get some temperature in the tires.
No rain expected for the
all right, and no rain is going to be expected for this race, so thankfully no wet running for us. One of the PC divisions actually had a wet race. We are running for this series. We are running dynamic weather, so we have a chance of rain every time we go out. So we'll just have to see what we can make do. And everybody kind of checking up into this area here. So wasn't really expecting a huge log jam or a traffic jam there. It looks like one of the cars at the front of this pack has really lost touch with the leaders. They're just way ahead already, and then everybody hard on the brakes here in the middle of a straight, just jammed on the brakes. So we had to really get on to try not to run into everybody, and that's already a concerning sign for us as we're in the middle of the pack here at the start of this race. Now I wonder, it might have been because the lead group got there so quickly. I wonder if they forgot for a moment that there was going to be a formation lap and thought it was green lights and lights out and kind of took off at full racing speed and completed their lap, because by the time we got to Sector 3, they were almost on the grid. But unfortunately, what that means is they're going to sit on the grid and their tires are going to be cooling off. You can see that bundle of cars on the mini-map all together. But we'll see what happens here. It's our first real online race of the season. The evaluation race, I mean, we had an incident in the first lap on that one, but that one was individual error where the back end just kind of stepped out on us through an S section. But this time, We are on the grid. For some reason, yellow flags, but here comes the 5 red lights are up, and out they go. We got a decent launch. Onslaught's a little slow in the second phase, so we're getting a good run up here, but we're going to get out of the throttle nice and early into this break zone. Try and tiptoe our way through turn 1. Lots of contact. Gallows out. Our teammate swings on. We have to kind of dodge to try and avoid. He goes off. We have a little bit of a push with the Mercedes. We pick up a little bit of a warning there, but we're still at P10. We're checking out way early into the braking zone. That Red Bull is totally sideways. And now we have a little look up the inside, and he cuts straight to the apex, bumps us over the curb, and as soon as we hit the curb, it sent us off to the right into him. Another second touch, and both of us are out of the race on turn 4. And that was really, really frustrating. Super frustrating. Because, I mean, unfortunately, like as I cooled down, waited for a while, I let the entire race, play out. I didn't keep recording because I wanted to close down the capture and, re-look at that incident a couple of times. I just got to say it's kind of a racing incident. Nobody's really, I would say, at fault. There are things we both could have done to have avoided that. But in the end, we were both kind of reacting to the group checking up in front of us. And basically what happened was I had a little bit of an opening. I was well enough alongside of him. And as we started to get to the turn-in point, him from the outside, I kind of saw that he was going to go for the apex of the corner, go to the inside. So I tried to check up and let him slot in front, but I wasn't able to check up enough. And that just kind of caught us in an awkward position. And at that point, me not backing out enough and him closing all the way down and pushing me onto that curb. It's a pretty high curb for that corner, not one you're typically going to want to ride. As soon as I got pushed onto that inside curb, the back end started to step out. You saw I made a little bit of a twitch correction to try and keep the back end steadied. But at that point, the exit was closing off, and we just kind of made contact side to side, and there's a wall right there. So it was pretty unfortunate. But a bummer that our first race of the season ended so abruptly. We had a pretty good, promising practice session where we were running in the top 8 or so of times, and then not a bad qualifying. Definitely could have been better, but I was kind of being a little more cautious and avoiding all the mayhem in turn 1 and 2. Somehow staying alive for that, but just a racing incident took us out in turn 4. So it's a bummer. It's one thing, like I said, racing alongside AI, I kind of know what they're going to do there. That I wasn't expecting him to go all the way to the low side of the apex. I was expecting him to kind of leave space around the outside because I got to the inside. By the time I realized that I wasn't going to have the space there and I tried to back out of it, it put me in a bad situation. So you live and learn. Hopefully the next week's race captures are going to be a little longer than this one, and hopefully I can get the technical difficulties kind of sorted out. But I'll kind of let the tail end, the last little bit of the race play out, so you can see the end results to see how everybody finished. And there ended up being a 5 total DNFs that race. Our teammate went out a little later, and a couple of other cars. But fingers crossed that we'll have a better result next week. And as we're headed to Canada as the next track on the calendar. And I think there's also going to be some tweaks to the rule changes as far as corner cutting and damage levels. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more care in the racing. And yeah, it's just a bummer. It was just a bummer to start it off that way. I was hoping to bring you guys a good race to start it off with, but such is how it goes. So I will catch you guys next time. Thank you for joining me, and keeping my head up. Peace.